Okay, welcome back to Continue Freedom. Boy, what a day. We've got some crazy stuff to talk about. You guys probably saw it in the thumbnail. You saw it you saw the description, and you saw what I think in the title of the video, which is "We Got to Fire Pam Bondi." Well, Trump does. But we're going to get into all that. We're going to get into I just got sent something by a buddy of mine from Braver Than the Rest. And he, which, by the way, check out that podcast, Braver Than the Rest. We do it every Wednesday, and it's fantastic. So we're on Rumble and Facebook and YouTube. So anyway, yeah, apparently the footage from Epstein's cell, the metadata showed that it was doctored. We've got Kash Patel. This is like new breaking stuff, all kinds of breaking stuff. I didn't break it, but Laura Loomer and some other folks have. We're going to get into all of it. We're going to talk about the ICE raids and how this violence against ICE agents is the impact that it's having. But we're going to talk about the kind of the leftists, I guess, their tactics that they use in those certain scenarios and how they're manipulating us, manipulating we the people. They are interfering with law enforcement, and all of this ties together. It ties back to the Department of Justice and all that. But before we get into all of these things, if you enjoy this content, hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video is released. We've got several new subscribers, so I want to welcome all of you all to the live stream. And if you're watching after the fact, that's cool too. I'm okay with it. All right, let's go ahead and get into the first piece of this. Actually, let me play something funny. I'm going to play something funny because we get into serious stuff. You got to laugh to keep from crying. I say that all the time. But this was Jamie Dimon. Check this out. Jamie Dimon's comments about people on the left, about his friends on the left. This is from Fox News. Let me go ahead and play this really quick, and then we'll get into the headlines.
Top banker Jamie Dimon criticizing Democrats. He said, quote, "I have a lot of friends who are Democrats, and they're idiots. I always say they have big hearts and little brains. They do not understand how the real world works. Almost every single policy rolled out failed."
So that's the CEO of JP Morgan. And he's saying, I've got a lot of friends who are Democrats, but they're idiots. That doesn't mean that every Democrat is an idiot. I think it's true that a lot of them do have big hearts. People that lean more to the left, I think they have big hearts, but they don't give enough thought to how those kind-hearted policies, that they think are helping people, how they are A, going to be paid for, or B, what impact they have on the rest of us. So let's go ahead and get into the main thing. I'm going to start with a quick disclaimer, and that is, I felt like yesterday during the live stream, I was a bit unfair to Kash Patel. I came down on him as saying that he would be, between him and Dan Bongino, who was more likely to be lying to us, to we the people. And I said that it was Kash Patel. I think that was an unfair way to phrase that. So I'm going to, when I feel like I made a mistake or I said something out of turn, I'm going to be the first to admit that I did so. And I feel like I did. I came down pretty hard on him because he was so nonchalant. And in the hostage video, which is what I keep calling it, but that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino joint interview that they did, Dan Bongino looked distressed. He looked different. Well, Laura Loomer broke today that, he does. He did look different. And did I just delete my Laura Loomer tweet? Oh, gosh, I must have. So Laura Loomer broke today. How in the world did I delete that? What a numbskull. But Laura Loomer, wait, here we go. This is the one. So this has been now confirmed by Axios, by CNN, by a lot of other news agencies that Dan Bongino is seriously considering leaving the FBI. And kudos to Laura Loomer. Think what you want to about her. I mean, she's an aggressive personality, but she has been breaking a lot of very serious stories. So she says, Dan Bongino is now seriously thinking about resigning from the FBI as deputy director over Pam Bondi's mishandling of the Jeffrey Epstein file release and the lack of transparency at the DOJ. As I exclusively reported earlier today, Bongino took the day off from work, so Dan Bongino wasn't even at the FBI today. He took the day off from work to evaluate whether or not he wants to continue his position with the FBI following the Sunday night release of a memo from the DOJ that claims no more information about Jeffrey Epstein will be released. And this is, of course, the unsigned, undated memo that was leaked from the FBI that said, we're not even looking into this anymore. Just stop talking about it. There's nothing to be seen here. So that's what came out. And we've talked about the hostage video. We talked about the suicide the unaliving. I'm probably off of YouTube now because I don't think I could say that word. You know, that bastion of free speech that YouTube is. And so all this, it came out, and he said, "I saw it. I read the file. He looked distressed. Now he says, I got to take a day off. I can't do this." And serious sources now in multiple places from multiple people have said he's thinking about leaving because it's just that bad. If you want to talk about a corrupt system, that's example number one. But let's go ahead and talk about Kash Patel as well. So this was broken earlier, just literally an hour, maybe an hour and a half ago. Eric Doherty came out and said, breaking, Kash Patel considers resigning as FBI director along with Dan Bongino if Pam Bondi stays and Bongino leaves, per the Daily Wire. So the two biggest bulldogs that we've been proponents of, that I've been a proponent of, I've gone to bat for these guys, whether I'm on this live stream or other live streams, I'm talking about Kash Patel and Dan Bongino as the two guys that need to fix the DOJ, that need to fix the FBI. But I was worried about the DOJ, and Pam Bondi is the one that my buddy Ben said it tonight. He said, well, I guess you were right. Because I said, I got a bad feeling about Pam Bondi. I had a really bad feeling about Pam Bondi. Well, what else do we have? What other concern should we have about Pam Bondi? Well, this was by Unusual Whales, and I saw this from a couple other sources. But my buddy Jeremy Ben texted this to me from Braver Than the Rest. Unusual Whales. The footage from the Epstein cell that was released by the DOJ was edited with Adobe Premiere Pro, stitched from 2 clips, and was saved 4 times per Wired. So apparently some people got in here and looked at the metadata, and the metadata was saying that this went into Premiere Pro, which you can see whether it was edited or not. It was edited multiple times, presumably, just like I do. I do this for a living, by the way, as a videographer. That's how I pay my bills. And you send a video clip to someone, it gets sent back. You export another one with whatever corrections or changes or tweaks. You tell people, hey, look at this, and this is probably what happened. In that editing software, they're scrolling through it and looking through all the footage. They probably buffer. And if you buffer it back and forth, like if you pick I'm trying to think of a good way for an average person to do it, but it doesn't matter. You take that and you buffer it, and you could see little glitches and changes and say, oop, there's a little glitch right here. We need to fix that. So you can mask those things out. It's amazing what you can do with video editing software. And come to find out, what Pam Bondi gave us, the Department of Justice gave us, was doctored. We got doctored footage. So credibility in the DOJ was already in the tank. And we thought that at least the FBI was going to have some transparency, was going to provide us with a bit more transparency through Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. Who's pulling blocker? Well, apparently Pam Bondi. Now, you might be asking, and it's a valid question, why is it so important? Why is the DOJ so stinking important? And I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why, and this is from my opinion, but I think it's going to make sense to you guys as well. So laws can be broken with impunity if there is no federal law enforcement. We can get into a debate about federal law enforcement and its place in our society. The really strong proponents of states' rights say that there shouldn't be federal law enforcement at all. I don't think that's the case. I think that the world has changed enough where that's something that we need to have. But laws mean absolutely nothing if there is no enforcement. So if you take over the DOJ, which is what we are fighting against right now, it's the takeover of the DOJ, it really becomes the most significant power play that the deep state can make, and the deep state has made. So the Epstein case is a primary example of this, and if the DOJ is corrupted and it can cover up the crimes of the elites, it helps hold in place that multi-tiered justice system. Whether you believe it's a 2-tiered or, like I believe, it's a 3-tiered justice system, then you can keep that facade of a republic in place, but you also protect the power base, and you protect the elites, and you protect the people that get special privileges. You can also continue to use it to raid the homes of your political opponents, just like we saw happen with Donald Trump. So you can raid the homes of your political opponents or the people that support them, so you can create this cooling effect that can help you win elections. And on top of this, the federal law enforcement agency itself it's an extension of things like the education system. What's one of the things that they require for a lot of these federal agents, for most of these federal agents? A college degree. Well, what is college? College it's an indoctrination factory. So this is how they've taken these things over. And this is what Kash Patel and Dan Bongino in the FBI are trying to get over, or trying to take back. And this is why it's so important. This is a deep-rooted problem. And unknowns like Pam Bondi. I mean, if you're from Florida, I'm sure you probably knew who Pam Bondi was. I didn't know who she was. All I had seen were the clips people had posted about her and her stance on red flag laws. And I know if you've listened to me for any length of time, you know that I'm adamantly opposed to red flag laws because they are entirely unconstitutional. But she was for them. And if you're willing to take one right away, or to, sacrifice that freedom for security, if you think that there's instances where that's okay, then I'm automatically, my antennas go up. And my antennas went up with Pam Bondi. And as, again, I'm going to keep bringing up my buddy Ben over at Braver Than the Rest. When he texted me and he said, well, you were right. Yes, I was, Ben. I was right. So Trump is now in a situation where, he really doesn't have much of an option. Because if it's true that Kash Patel, again, that's from one source that I got. He's a reliable source, but it's from one source. If Kash Patel says, I'm also thinking about leaving, if you don't get rid of Bondi, and if Dan Bongino leaves, if you're willing to crash this whole thing, I'm not going down with this ship. That's what that says to me. Because if Pam Bondi, that's where the rubber meets the road with the reform of the DOJ. Okay, so I think too, the difficult situation Trump is in is that he wants to move away from the Epstein case. If you watched the live stream yesterday, that was one of the points I made. I was very angry about how he was dismissive when the reporter brought up the Epstein case. Was he a foreign agent? Was he this? Was he that? And Trump really responded as if, what are you talking about? This Epstein thing? Are you still worried about that? As if he doesn't know what's going on in the world. I know that he does, but he wants to move away from that, and he doesn't care about it as much as we do. So that disconnect is important. But he has delegated all of that to Pam Bondi, and she's the one who royally screwed this up. And if given the option between Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino, who would you pick? So these are the questions that I thought of. Who serves a greater purpose? Who has the most capacity for change? I guess would be a better way for me to ask that question. And the answer is obviously Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino left a multi-million-dollar media empire that he was building. This guy was hugely successful, monstrously successful, and he left that to go be a public servant. That says something to me. He's not doing it. He didn't need the money. Obviously, he doesn't need the money. He could be making, 8 figures. But he left that for I don't know what he's getting paid, $120,000 a year, $110,000 a year. I don't know, it might be more than that. But nonetheless, he left a monstrous, powerful, engaging position as a social media personality, as a news outlet, and he did that, he left it to serve us. What did Pam Bondi do? She seems like a political opportunist. And who is more politically valuable? So Pam Bondi, the one who I didn't know much about her before, when her name popped up, I had to do my research. Or Dan Bongino, who has been one of the most, it's not that he's a Trump supporter. He is, but he's more than that. He's driven by values that are so similar to people on the right, to conservatives, that it makes him this endearing figure to everyone. And so political value, Dan Bongino, even as deputy director of the FBI, is far more valuable than Pam Bondi. And this is the other part. Who is driven more by a servant mentality and who is driven by opportunism? I think that Dan Bongino has a servant's mentality. I can't speak certainly about Pam Bondi because, like I said, I don't know anything about her other than she likes red flag laws. She probably had some success in Florida. She had a reputation as kind of a bulldog. And, that's fine. But Dan Bongino, this is why people like him. Because he has that servant heart, that servant mentality. And then the last point is, who do we know and who do we not know? Which I think I've been talking about through through my yammering for the past 15 minutes. So here's another question. Should we give her a chance? And these are all questions you guys can answer down in the comments or have conversations down in the comments. We got quite a few folks on right now. should we give her another chance? Is she worth salvaging as the attorney general? She was given an opportunity. This is like one of the big promissory notes of Trump's presidency. It was the Epstein list. And she had that opportunity. He delegated it to her because, like I said, he was less concerned about it than we were. But he said, this is a big thing to my people, I guess. So you go take the bull by the horns and you get after it. And what did she do? She failed abysmally. So, there's people still fighting for the release of these documents. And Dan Bongino, he was I believe on Fox News, and he said there's still going to be more coming out. I talked yesterday in the live stream yesterday about it, that, yeah, there's still more information coming out, even though they said in that leaked memo, we're stopping this, we're not, doing any more with it. Again, from the Post-Millennial, Steve Bannon calls for a special prosecutor and full release of the Epstein files. Former White House strategist Steve Bannon is calling for a special prosecutor to be assigned to the Jeffrey Epstein case and for all files to be released. Bannon made the call during a broadcast of War Room TV. Calls for answers in Jeffrey Epstein case resurfaced this week as several public figures renewed their demand for the release of long-promised and yet-to-be-delivered files, reigniting controversy over the financier sex trafficker's connections to the circumstances of his death. One person calling for the files released is blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah. So he's calling for it. Other people are calling for it. We want more. Give us more information. Pam Bondi doesn't seem to want to do that, but it's not going to go away. So Trump is between a rock and a hard place, and I'm glad he should be. On this instance, I know he's got to walk and chew gum at the same time. But I want to say kudos to Laura Loomer. Kudos to all these folks, these alternative media outlets that are breaking these stories, because we're not going to get that from CNN. We're not going to get that from MSNBC, ABC, CBS, any of those folks. Some from Fox News, but alternative media, winner, winner, chicken dinner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner, people. I love it. Yes, Tristan, you're right. Over on Rumble, she says, you have a lot to talk about after 2 weeks off. I've been off for like 2 months. I didn't post. I was still doing Braver Than the Rest, but on my channel, I went a long time without posting. I got smothered in work, which I'm, hallelujah, I'm blessed. Okay, let's get into the next point. Yes, you're right. Dan greater than Pam in the comments. Thank you, Tristan. Okay, so let's talk about we're talking about federal law enforcement. I'm going to tie this back into some other things going on, and that is attacks on federal officers surged 700% as Trump vows investigation. This is really wild. There's a lot of data on this, and there's a lot of footage. So if you're on X or any of the other platforms, you're most certainly seeing this. But 10 armed protesters shot at a Texas ICE facility, wounding one officer. Portland ICE office attacked, 4 arrested for assaulting agents. This is from News Nation. President Donald Trump vowed Wednesday to investigate who may be funding escalating attacks on immigrations and customs enforcement agents, as federal data shows assaults on immigrants or immigration officers have surged nearly 700% compared to last year. Yeah, well, you know what we were doing last year. You know what was going on last year. Nothing. We weren't deporting anybody last year. So, of course, there's a 700% increase. We weren't sending anybody out of this country. There's a lot of people coming in, nobody leaving. The Department of Homeland Security confirmed the increase in attacks on federal agents as violence against ICE and Border Patrol officers intensified over the 4th of July weekend, disrupting enforcement operations and allowing potentially dangerous individuals to remain in the country. So there's guys, these people are wearing body armor. They're obviously armed. Some of them are throwing fireworks, incendiary devices and things at these officers. And all they're trying to do is their job, and they're trying to meet quotas. So apparently, law enforcement sources say that agents are under pressure to meet daily arrest quotas of 3,000 people, leading to large-scale enforcement operations where individuals not originally targeted are being swept up, partly because their safety and operations are being compromised by protesters. So they gave them a quota. They can't meet the quota. And part of this is because of individuals interfering with federal law enforcement operations. And they're doing so in a way that is putting people's lives in danger. And this is, again, this is why the pushback, with the Department of Justice, this call for transparency that we have had for a very long time. Oops. It's because people like Maxine Waters and other Democrats, they want this to continue. They knew that their people, when they mobilized their militia to come out and harass federal law enforcement, when they mobilize their little militiamen to go out and try to stop ICE from doing their jobs, that when you have a compliant Department of Justice, it bodes well for them, right? There's 3,000 people being sent out a day, or arrests being made a day. That's 3,000 voters a day that they are losing. But listen to what Maxine Waters says.
Those who were out of step with what we are advocating, peaceful protest, did not create any violence. Nobody was shot, nobody was killed. Get it in your head. And so when martial law is called, what are you going to say? I missed the point. Don't miss the point, you all. Don't think that somehow, because they called out the National Guard, there was violence. There was no violence. I was on the street. I know. And I went from downtown detention back out into the community, talking to people what happened in Paramount, what happened in Compton, what happened in Inglewood. So,
and by the way, this guy, so she's sitting here telling you there's no violence. It's no violence, no violence, no violence, no violence. Meanwhile, you can watch what's going on in the places she said she was. Violence. And this guy they wound up rolling this guy up. He got rolled. He was throwing bricks look, I mean, check that out. He's throwing bricks at ICE agents who were just doing their jobs. Removing criminals, people that are criminals. I'm sorry. They're criminal. If you came across this border illegally, you're a criminal. But it's a good reminder why, people like, I say, Laura Loomer, Tim Pool, PBD, people that are on the cell phones, one day continue freedom. They're on cell phones with these individuals who are behind the scenes trying to affect change, and they're going to break the news to you. I'm going to break the news to you. I'm going to be honest with you and give you my opinion, but I know that you are a smart person, and you can agree with me, you can disagree with me. I just want to give you the information, and again, I'm going to give you my opinion, but you're free to think what you want to think. They don't want that. They need you to think the exact right way. You got to toe that line, and anything outside of that is racist. It's whatever. And this brings me back to the point that I wanted to make off of this, is that the left, it is the party of violence. It has become the party of violence, and they will do whatever they can to try and convince you otherwise, even to the tune of someone like Jasmine Crockett telling you that, all the violence, and she said this on a podcast. I'll play the clip here in a minute. But she came out and said, nope, all this stuff, all the violence you're seeing, this is MAGA. It's MAGA that's doing that. The people who want to make this country great again, the Make America Great Again folks, it's them that are doing all the violence. They're causing all the ruckus. It's not us. Don't let the Palestinian flags and the communist flags and the Antifa shirts and all that stuff fool you. It's actually Republicans doing it. And it brings me to a quote that's kind of it's attributed to Goebbels, the Nazi propagandist, that says, accuse the other side of that which you are guilty. But I don't think it's ever been officially, there's nothing official of him having written it, but it does toe the line of the left and of the socialist movement, and the communist movement, and authoritarians in general, and it's accuse the other side of that which you are guilty. So say that all this violence that you're experiencing, it's MAGA people. It's not us. It's not the ones being paid by George Soros. No. It's the people that support Donald Trump. And it's a common theme. It's a common tactic, but they also, they say that the other side is racist. But they are the people who want to divide us on race and give special privileges through CRT and affirmative action based on immutable characteristics, which is in and of itself a racist thing. They are the authoritarian. They say that we're the authoritarians, that MAGA is the authoritarians, but they're the ones that use the power of the state to lock people in their homes, to shut down your churches, and to turn people against each other. Sound familiar? If you've read any history on communism, on Maoist China or Nazi Germany, any of those things, they use the exact same tactics. They say that we are the violent ones, just as I was telling you, but they're the ones who are burning down towns, smashing car windows, throwing bricks at ICE agents and other folks. burning down mom and pop family businesses, and causing billions of dollars in damage. And if you remember, this really got amped up when a drug addict, a crackhead, overdoses in police custody, and next thing you know, billions of dollars later, cities are being burned. So here's the video of Jasmine Crockett. I got to play it because you got to hear it straight from her mouth. I'm sitting here telling this to you, but you got to see it. You got to hear it with your own eyes.
Doesn't come from Democrats, just to be clear. I mean, obviously anyone can be a criminal, but it is MAGA. It's specifically MAGA faction. Like, I don't think traditional Republicans are getting engaged in all of this, but like, even when we look at, and they don't talk about the assassination attempts anymore that took place with Donald Trump, but these were Trump supporters, right? As well as this most recent situation, they tried to flip it and say, oh, the leftists are, I'm like, this doesn't even make sense, right? But it's only like MAGA that does this.
Okay, so there you go. Don't believe your lying eyes. You know, we're big communists, by the way. MAGA's huge communists. we love waving those commie flags, getting dressed up. You know, we're big fans of, what do they call it, black bloc or whatever it is. Oh yeah, that's MAGA all the way. Goodness gracious. So look, there lies. There's good gracious. And you know, here you go. Here's a little bit more of it. This guy, there's a FBI manhunt underway for the guy that was involved in shooting at the ICE detention center. I'm sure he's a Republican. I mean, I have zero doubt in my mind, right? You guys know that. He's obviously a Republican. The black mask gives it away. Going after the ICE agents, fireworks. I mean, come on. That's MAGA all the way, right? I'm so tired of being lied to. I know you guys don't fall for it, but these are really the conversations that we have to have with the people in our spheres, I believe. You know, when I talked about the FBI and other departments, federal departments, that indoctrination, you know, this is what I believe, call me a conspiracy theorist, but that's part of why I believe they require college degrees for certain positions and certain, you know, it's not that that these people actually, you know, to be an FBI agent, does a college degree necessarily help you? No, I mean, I guess it could, but I didn't learn anything from my college degree. I was a history major, and I wound up doing video, photo, graphic design, website, all that kind of stuff. Aside from my military stuff, you know, I had a history degree, and then I went into the military for 10 years, on active duty for 10 years. Did it ever serve me? No. I would have been it would have been much more valuable for me to go into straight out of high school into leadership academies and grow up in the military system. All that stuff could be, you know, it could be taught by the military. It doesn't have to be taught by, you know, colleges. I mean, most of my college professors, even at a institution like VMI, the Virginia Military Institute, there was a lot of lefty professors. I had morals and principles, and so I just kind of shrugged off the ones that were more like that. But this is what we have to contend with. We're contending against an entire generation of indoctrinated people who are coming in and being put in long-term positions in the federal government. So I will tie all that back to justice, to law enforcement, accountability, all the things that we want can be largely affected by the Department of Justice. Pam Bondi is the wrong person to do that. There you go. There's my opinions. And honestly, guys, that's all I had for tonight. Now, I do have one funny video. I could end on that one. And actually, you know what? I'll save it for the next live stream. It was pretty good. I do that sometimes. I tease you guys about it. I'm like, oh, I'm going to play this one, and then I don't. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Be sure, if you enjoyed this content, to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video is released. And be sure to share this content. Be sure to comment below. Do all those wonderful things because it truly helps us with the algorithm. I want to welcome again all the new subscribers. We've got some new ones on YouTube. We've got some new ones on Rumble. Guys, thanks so much for being here. I will see you in the next video. I love this country. I love you guys. God bless you. God bless America. I'll see you later, fellas and ladies.